So now we've got our basic foundation. We've got drums, we've got bass and guitars, and what we're going to work on now is going to be vocals. And right now I've got Todd's lead vocals inside this submix track. There's quite a few tracks in there, but they're all basically going to be affected and EQ'd the same. The reason I would have multiple tracks would be overlapping parts that might take a slightly different effect or a slightly different EQing.
Chasing after a long lost dream, but your reality is not mine.
As you can tell, it's a very nice sounding recording. That AKG microphone did a great job, and there's no bleed. He was wearing headphones. I wasn't playing the music through any speakers or anything. So we've got a very clean vocal recording to work with. So it's not going to take a whole lot other than I'm going to use the 10-band equalizer to pull out lows, 32, 63 completely, and half of 125. And what that does is make sure that Todd's P's and B's and other things that may cause pops and low end are not going to have more low end in them than, say, your bass drum or your bass guitar, because then it just doesn't sound like a professional recording. So we'll add that equalizer, and before I add the delay back in, I'm going to pull up the effects for the submix track itself. And I've added another equalizer doing the same thing, basically pulling out the lows, tweaking some of the mids, tweaking some of the highs, compression, of course. And I've added the classic chorus to give a vocal spread. Spread it out, a little bit of stereo effect makes the vocals sound huge, and a little bit of the Acoustica reverb. And I like just a little bit of the reverb with not much high frequency damping. I like to hear the S's and things reverb out as well. So we'll let you hear that.
Chasing after a long lost dream, but your reality.
Now you may think that sounds MIDI, like there's not enough low end opinions like that, but when you mix that in with the rest of the band, the rest of the music, it sounds much more sitting down in the mix as well as on top of the mix because of the mids still existing. So it's going to sit on top of the mix and sound very nice. So we'll put that delay back on there and play just a little bit of the track with the music. And you can only hear that delay and reverb in certain points of the vocal where he may stop singing, and it gives a little bit of a highlight, gives it some emphasis. So far our vocals are sounding very nice. And as I mentioned, these other vocal tracks are going to be just about the same thing, but we will loop down here where the chorus is and show you how he's done harmonies to himself. Basically, he records a track, goes back, and I put that vocal along with the music into his headphones so he can then sing another track with a harmony on it. So we'll give you his first track with just his lead vocal and the chorus on it.
People may think I'm a fool.
Then we'll add his second one in there.
People may think I'm a fool,
which is an octave low. We'll add the third one.
People may think I'm a fool,
which is an actual third or fifth, or jumping between the two.
People may think I'm a fool because of what they see.
So with all four of those in there, you've got a 4-part harmony, makes for a very full chorus, especially with that chorus plug-in on there, creating the vocal spread effect, makes it sound huge. So we'll play a little bit of the chorus there for you with the music. Okay, that's starting to sound like a full song. Sounds pretty good to me, but again, there's going to be lots of tweaking later on before we actually do the mastering. Okay, we're going to move on to a submix track, which I call Vocals Group. And the reason I call it that is because it's full of tracks that we recorded using 5 guys singing at the same time. We wanted this song to have a sort of effect where there was lots of people singing this chorus at the end of the song. So basically what we've got is a vocals group submix track and a whole bunch of tracks under that.
People may think I'm a fool because of what they see.
So obviously that's not Todd, that's 5 guys who pretty much can't sing. But it does sound like a bunch of guys standing around singing the chorus. So once we add that EQ back in there, take out some of the lows so it doesn't sound so dry, add the compressor and the reverb and the chorus, it's going to sound a little bit better.
People may think I'm a fool because of what they see.
And then at the same time, we went back and recorded another track with the same 5 guys an octave lower.
People may think I'm a fool.
So if we play both of those at the same time, it sounds even more full than it did before.
People may think I'm a fool because
Starting to sound like 10 guys singing instead of 5. And I've repeated that over here and here. And we'll move down. And these group vocal tracks, as you can see, I've got them panned right, left, center, left, right. And what these are, this is just Todd.
I'm a fool because of what they see.
And he's singing the same notes that the 5 of us were at the same time. And what it's going to do is kind of keep everybody in tune, in key, so we don't sound that bad like we're so out of key. And it also adds that big stereo effect because I've panned him left, right, and put one in the center. So we'll play left, right, center of the first 3 for you.
I'm a fool because of what they see.
And I did not record him one time and then copy the track onto 2 more tracks and then just simply pan them. That wouldn't really work because they would all be exactly the same. In order to get that stereo effect and that really big effect, he actually sang that 3 times and then we panned it. And these next 2,
I'm a fool
it's basically just the octave lower, just like we did with the group, and panned left and right so we get that big sound. Now if we listen to everybody together,
I'm a fool because of what they see.
so instead of 5 guys singing the part and then 5 guys singing the octave lower part, giving us the 10 guys, we've now got 12 or 14 guys with Todd's vocals added into that. He's also singing the 2 octaves. And it sounds huge. It sounds very full, especially when the entire song is playing. It's very full sounding. And that's the effect we were going for. It was actually Todd's idea to do that, and it was a great idea. I think it makes the song stand out and gives it a little bit of charisma. So we're going to go down to these other tracks, which we haven't really highlighted yet. Solo that submix again. And here, the group also, again, does these parts where we do the 2 different octaves. It's just a different part of the song.
Lay it down. Play it loud.
And then again, we have Todd coming in, pan left, pan right, pan center,
Lay it down.
doing his part 3 times,
Play it loud.
not copying a single. You want to do it 3 times.
Lay it down.
And then he did the same thing with the lower octave.
Lay it down.
when you add in the group vocals.
Lay it down. Play it loud.
So we'll unsolo this track and listen to everything together, all the vocals, guitars, bass, drums, and see what we've got. Alright, to me that sounds like it's coming together very nicely. Everything's sitting down in the mix, nothing's louder than something else. The reverb is making everything come together nicely on each instrument. The compression is doing its job, pulling everything down that's too loud, lifting things up that aren't quite loud enough. The vocal spread is making the vocals sound huge to me, which is very good. So the next thing that we're going to do is go to the master track and add a multi-band compressor to give the entire recording more thump and more presence and more liveliness. So we'll go over to the master track, click the effects button, and pull up this broadcast multi-band compressor, which has low compression, mid compression, high compression, and it comes with all kinds of presets, so you can just kind of select something and see if that makes your recording sound better. But I like to adjust threshold and ratio and gain and everything myself. So we'll play this a little bit and then turn the compressor on and see if you can hear the difference. Definitely raises the volume, raises the liveliness. The highs are sharper. The mids are clearer, the lows are more thumpy without actually being too much for your speakers. So the last thing I'll do is add this Acoustica Pro Studio reverb, which is an excellent room reverb, and it's going to make the recording sound like everyone was in the same room playing at the same time. We've all got the same type of reverb on us. Now that effect is a little more subtle while the song's playing, but it does smooth the whole thing out, almost like a compression, because each instrument is getting the same reverb. I'd like to explain a little bit about why I like to use a spectrum analyzer on my master track. First thing I'll do is go to the master track effects and pull up the spectrum analyzer. And here you can get a visual idea of what your audio is doing. If you're not quite sure just by listening to it, if there's too much low end or too much high end, if things are not even, then you can kind of get an idea by opening this up. So I'm going to play the little bit of the song, and you can see that all of our frequencies from low to high are basically fairly even. Another great thing about using the spectrum analyzer is that you can see your compression evening things out. Without the compression, you'll have much more dramatic and drastic lines. But you need to be careful, because now that we've got the multi-band compressor also on our main mix, now when you adjust one instrument, it's going to affect the rest of the mix. For example, if you listen to your project on a car stereo on a CD or something like that, and you think, the bass guitar doesn't quite have enough low end in it, and you go add the low end to the bass guitar, that's going to affect this multi-band compressor, and it's going to pull the low end down on everything else. So you'll suddenly start thinking, geez, I don't remember turning the low end down on my kick drum or something like that. So you have to be careful when mixing after you've applied these mastering effects. And again, the spectrum analyzer will help you to make sure everything stays smooth with each change. So that's about it. If you keep these steps in mind when working on your own projects, you should be able to achieve similar results. Like anything else, ending up with a great final mix will take practice, patience, dedication, and training your ears to pick up the smallest imperfections, which may not be noticeable to a general audience, but will be noticeable to you in the long run. One of the worst and most common things that happen to engineers and producers is to call a project finished, duplicate 1,000 CDs, distribute them to the public, and sometime later you start noticing things you wish you would have fixed or changed. So make 100% sure that you're happy with the final mix before calling it a wrap. Personally, I always bring in at least 4 other musicians and producers with well-trained ears to listen and give feedback. I hope these tips and tricks help you to create some great rock and metal mixes. I'm Eric Van Landingham for Acoustica, and I guess that's a wrap. See you.